I recognize that all of us have that animalistic side of us. And so Jordan Peterson says,
you should be a monster.
Because the dragon can unleash absolute hell, or if it has a rider, it can actually bring peace to the realm.
I want to ask you how you define God. I know this word is impossible to define.
You start talking about Christ and you start talking about God, at least 50% of the people you're talking to are like, yeah, not for me. And you're like, what? Christ and God? That's the best.
Choose your form of pain, right? Like,
yeah, choose your suffering, man. We meet that part of ourselves that's that slut for comfort, and we say, not today,
There's many situations where the right thing is not always so clear.
And that's where you got to pray. And prayer is a great way to get quiet. And I think we've reduced prayer to this like throwing a quarter in the cosmic wishing well.
So when we use gold as God's money, if you will, we trust it because it minimizes the need to trust other people.
Yeah.
Because they can't print it. So you were just telling me something pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this may relate to a project you're working on currently.
Yep.
It relates to something we've talked about on the show previously, which is this relationship to the inner angel and the inner animal.
Mm-hmm.
That we all have this angelic side to us, which is the human nature, the path, the part of us that wants to be good, wants to do right, wants to take care of others,
Mm-hmm.
wants to elevate our consciousness. But at the same time, we're also animals, right? We are in meat suits. We have biological needs, and you can't ignore that, basically. So we need to find a way to integrate these two sides of ourselves. And you had a good metaphor for that.
Yeah.
That I think comes up.
So my book coming out hopefully in the fall is called You versus Anti-You. 13 moves to master the game of life. And one of them is to become the dragon rider.
Mm.
And I chose that because I recognize that all of us have that animalistic side of us. And so Jordan Peterson says, you should become an absolute monster and learn to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is he saying? He's saying that the idea that we're trying to squash your masculinity, animality, whether you're a man or a woman, this element of your ability to fight. I mean, even imagine a woman giving birth, especially like how it used to be, squatting, screaming, like going through this ecstatic process of like pushing through tearing and just like this animalistic primal element. Like there's things that we've anesthetized and actually like mollified and made soft, but we're not built for that. We're built to fight and fuck and run and hunt. And this is our nature actually as human primates. And so I liken that to a dragon because the dragon can unleash absolute hell, or if it has a rider, like Daenerys was before she turned dark in Game of Thrones, for anybody who watched Game of Thrones, it can actually bring peace to the realm and actually be a protector, be something that provides order and follows the higher will of what I call the captain.
Yeah.
And the captain is like the soul's awareness. And so we're all the captain of a dragon. And so it's about training the dragon to become the absolute, most impressive beast that it can possibly be, but also training the captain to have absolute control over that animal. And that allows you to experience the most efficacy and potency in life, so that you have full power and full control. And then you can do some damage for good or for bad. But if you're aligned with your higher virtue and you're connected to God, which is connecting you to all other beings, all other life, like when you do enough psychedelic plant medicine, like I have for 25 years, you understand that you're not separate from anything or anybody. Yeah. Like you are me living a different life. So if I do something fucked up to you, I'm doing something fucked up to me. It's immediate karma. Like you're actually doing something to yourself. So that's where the virtue comes in. And that's where your higher self and that awareness comes in, where there is no other. It's all God.
Yeah.
So the higher self of the captain comes in and says like, okay, I got a dragon. Now let me train the dragon. Let me ride the dragon and let me actually affect the world in a positive way.
Man, it goes straight to one of my favorite quotes from Musashi. We were talking earlier about the Book of Five Rings, and I think he has the 9 principles for strategic living. And one of them is the way is in training.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds a lot like what you're describing, right? That the higher part of yourself needs to train the lower part of yourself to be a fully integrated, individuated person.
Yep.
And it's and the dragon rider metaphor is interesting too, because it is the rider that's providing the guidance, but the dragon provides the power, right? The raw power, the raw animalistic energy, drive, and that this maybe gets to like the unconscious versus the unconscious in a way, because obviously our conscious mind tends to be that human part of ourselves that is paying attention to things in our conscious awareness, but we have all of this latent biological programming inside of us that's largely unconscious. We were talking about jealousy earlier being what I think is one of the primary unconscious drivers of human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, that it will continue to direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yep.
So this integration process is the process of becoming a human, really, like becoming an individual or becoming individuated.
Yeah. I mean, this animal, I call it the athlete. So I have a model of the self. You know, I talked about the captain, but I'll break down the model of the self. The athlete is the dragon, basically. Mm-hmm. This is your physical body. It's everything that you could actually touch or poke with a stick. That's the athlete, the meat suit.
Yeah.
And then there's the player, which is your identity. So that's like the jersey you put on. It has your name, it has your number, it has your social security number. It has like a way to identify you. It's your identity in the world. Then there's the coach, which Freud would call your superego, right? The coach is coaching the player, guiding him to play the game. You're defining the game that you're playing. And then there's the captain, who's like the awareness. It's actually your soul. Because what is a soul? A soul is the continuity of consciousness that maintains awareness through multiple different lifetimes. So it's awareness itself, but it's your particular unique awareness of your own unique journey, as we've all been differentiated from the one. So the captain is your unique awareness. So that's another element. Then there's the field, which is the field of play, which is God in many ways, right? Like, and there's a conscious form of the field, which is like God as the one that actually speaks through you. But it's really the field that you're connected to, the interconnectedness. Then there's your potential, which the Greeks would call your daemon. And that's the thing that's like what your ultimate fruition could be. Like we've talked a bit about in our conversations, like imitatio Christi, like imitation of Christ. What did Jesus do? Jesus unlocked Jesus's unique potential, and his unique potential was to become the Christ. And he pointed the way and said, all of us can become our own version of the Christ. And so to imitate Jesus is to imitate someone who went all the way to their potential. Like he fully maxed out the category. Like Yeshua just went, I'm going for 100, full on 100 potential. So there's your potential. And then there's that antagonistic force that I call anti-you. And I could break down the ontology of the world, but this is all in my book, You versus Anti-You. And it's come from 25 years of psychedelic medicine journeys. But all this to say, we're going back now to the animal, which is the athlete. Right. And this animal, it wants to fuck. It wants to procreate. It has, urges and tendencies, and we have to just be aware of what the animal wants to do. And it can be a little bitch. Like it can be so weak and just like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to get in the cold. It's cold. Ooh, this is so hot in the inipi, like, and that's
someone
where the captain.
Someone calls it the inner bitch. I forget who.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. That's it. Yeah.
And and this has nothing to do with women. This is just like being like, no, like step up. Like this is not like the bitch signifies like just not stepping into the full power of what you're capable of. And that's where the captain has to come and say, get your ass in the cold, get your ass to the gym, stay in that fucking sauna. And that's training the animal, just like you would train a dog, but like training the animal, like I am the master here. Like when you have a dog and you're training it and you have a steak and it's like, no, good boy. Now, like that's the captain, and that's what we have to do with the dragon. Otherwise, the dragon's going to be out of control. And I think a lot of people have associated a lot of the elements of an out of control dragon with this shadow masculine version, which is dangerous, of course. Like an untrained dog is dangerous if it's a dangerous dog. But like a super well-trained dog is like the safest thing you can have around. It brings order,
Yes.
to your family's home and to the neighborhood. It's like, this is a force for order.
Yes.
And that's what our potential is to have our animal be in order. But we have to train that animal, train the athlete to actually bend to our will.
Yeah, the animal or the dragon or the athlete perhaps has to be the servant or the emissary rather than the master.
Right.
Right. When you invert that, you get the opposite, right? You get evil, for lack of a better term, right? Someone who's just purely out for their own self-interest. And so is the bitch then, the inner bitch is like the resistance to or the reticence to training, basically, right? Training is hard, right? It's hard to get up early. It's hard to go to the gym. It's hard to eat right. It's hard to meditate. I struggle with it every day. I have the inner bitch I'm struggling with every day, constantly.
The bitch is a slut for comfort. A slut for comfort. What's the most comfortable thing I can do?
Yeah.
What's the most comfortable pose? What's the most comfortable distractive thing? And these are the seductions of what that force I call anti-you is. It wants us to be just comfortable, not in pleasure, like deep pleasure. We went out to like this unbelievable dinner with amazing food and music and art and perform, and it was just all pure pleasure. That wasn't comfort. That was pleasure.
Fun,
but the opposite of that, actually, the opposite of pleasure isn't pain. It's actually comfort, right? Like pain is just a different. It's a different tune. It's a different chord. It's like the high chords on the violin versus the low chords. It doesn't feel good, but it's still the intensity of that. Comfort is this this whirlpool that'll suck you into this degeneracy and this degradation of your life.
Is it like the path of least resistance?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so if you take the low road, the path of least resistance, what's that saying that you choose your form of pain, right? Like you can
choose your suffering, man.
Choose your suffering, right? You can not go to the gym now and suffer later.
Yep.
Or you can go to the gym now, suffer now, and feel good later.
Yep. And that's the choice we have to make every day is we meet that part of ourselves that's that slut for comfort. Yeah. And we say, nope, not today.
Yes.
And that's an act of will. And I think there's so much of this that is an act of will. And I think culture has tried to make everybody a victim. It's your genetic. Oh, you have this thing. Oh, you have this thing. Okay, well, go carnivore. You have inflammation. Oh, I have arthritis. Yeah. Okay, great. That sucks. Yeah. And what are you doing about your diet?
Exactly.
Are you going to go carnivore? Are you going to go do something that's uncomfortable? Yeah. It's not fun to only eat meat. I mean, meat's amazing, but it takes discipline. Bread is delicious. Croissants are awesome. But if you want to get rid of your arthritis, go carnivore. Yeah. And do, maybe that won't work. I'm not saying that that's the answer to everything, or maybe try keto or try, but you have to actually take responsibility and say these are the cards I've been dealt. Now, how can I play them? How can I play them? What are my outs? How do I play this to win? And if we take that choice, we're going to find a way to win. I think we all have outs. We all have a way that we can win. And it's just about our mindset. That's what Viktor Frankl was saying. The last of the great human freedoms is one's ability to choose a given attitude about any circumstance. Right. Wasn't exactly the quote, but that's the basic idea. It's he was in a concentration camp and he realized that he could shift his attitude and then choose his own experience that he was having despite the most abominable conditions that you could possibly imagine. He was like, no, there is a will. There's a choice about how you can actually navigate any circumstance. And I think we've lost that in our society.
Absolutely. And that maps on to exactly the operative word of responsibility, that Frankel's saying you can choose how you respond to any given set of circumstances. That is a freedom that no one can take from you.
Yep.
And it is that is what it seems to all boil down to, is that we are individuals. We have to take individual responsibility for our own actions. part of the divine masculine, I think, is even taking responsibility for that which you are not responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The analogy I like to give here is if we are sitting in a nice, looking over a nice ocean vista, and a meteor hits the earth, a big one, and we're like, oh shit. Clearly, you and I aren't responsible for that. We didn't do that, right? The meteor just hit the earth. But the quicker we shift our mentality from, oh, woe is me, a meteor just hit the earth, all is fallen, the quicker we shift to gears, like, what can we do about this?
Yep.
The better off we are and the better off the world is,
Right.
frankly. So, like, responsibility, there's so much loaded in that word. Not only is it your ability to respond, but it's also this sacred duty, maybe, to just like, you are given individual free will in this world. Well, what did Bob Dylan say? Something, a hero is someone that understands the responsibility that comes with his freedom. Like, if you have freedom, you also, to have freedom, you have to be responsible and taking on as much responsibility as possible at all times.
Yeah.
And so you brought up, which you taught me this phrase, and thank you for that. I hope I'm saying it right. Imitatio Christi. Imitate Christ. What is the role of imitation in human cultural transmission? And why do we need these mythological figures and archetypes to orient ourselves properly? Like, there's a lot of people out there with a materialistic scientific worldview that think it's all just adult fairy tales, total bullshit, completely irrelevant. All we need is science. But I think, what's that saying, that the first sip from the glass of the natural sciences makes you an atheist, but by the bottom of the glass, you find God.
Yeah.
What is the role of these mythological archetypes? And not just Christ. Christ is a high one for me, but there's also the Buddha, there's also Socrates, etc.
Right. And just the story of the hero.
Yes.
The story of the hero. Like, I don't know about you, but whenever I watch a movie where there's a hero, whether it's Gladiator or Braveheart or 300 with Leonidas, or those are the movies that I cry.
Yeah.
I cry in those movies because I see a hero and then I remember myself as that hero. Because I think what tears are to me is tears are like wiping away the frames of what you can't see. You know, like tears come when there's something that you haven't seen that now you're seeing, and it just cleanses the lenses of your perception. And so anytime you see a hero, it reminds us of who we really are. And so I think these stories of heroes and our modern myths are often movies. You know, like those are the stories of our time. You think of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Braveheart and Gladiator and 300. Like, these are the myths that actually impacted us the most in our generation. And these stories of these heroes are incredibly important. Now, of course, there's the spiritual heroes as well. And there's so much. I mean, those are deep portals to go. But even the story of these heroes and in the codes and the way that culture is speaking through that, like, one of the things in Gladiator is your deeds will echo in eternity.
Yes.
Your deeds will echo in eternity.
Yeah.
What you do in life echoes in eternity.
Yeah.
That's exactly the quote.
Yeah.
And that's so important, because why would you be a hero? Like, let's say you have to stand and die for something greater than you. If there's not a continuity of consciousness, why the fuck would you do that? You know, yes, you may care about the other people, but actually, if you know that when you go to the beyond, into your next life, into your soul, like, you'll look back at this life and be like, God damn, I did that one good. You know, like, I held the gate, you know, like Hodor in Game of Thrones, like, I held the door.
Yeah.
And like, I was a fucking hero. Like, Hodor's soul.
Yeah.
Again, another Game of Thrones reference, if you don't know it, is a big hero who like held the door, you know, so that the other heroes could actually like have a chance to save the realm.
Yeah.
And if you do that action, those deeds echo in eternity, and the continuity of your consciousness, which is actually even beyond dispute, even scientifically, after all the work that's been done at the University of Virginia and like past life regression and all of this, it's like, we're beyond mythology and fairy tale now. Now we have like actual evidence of the continuity of consciousness beyond just the N of one plant medicine journeys where you experience your soul, etc. But to know that, like, all right, your soul's in this continuity of consciousness, you're going to have this clarity that's going to come. Like, how do you want to live your life? And then that evokes the hero.
Yeah.
in a way where you're actually connected to the whole, you're connected to the field, and you're connected to your soul at, going through its journey. So there's like almost a rapture that comes, and you see in these heroes, like when Leonidas is like making his stand for Greece, it's just so beautiful. It's just like it evokes all of the emotions. It's like, what a way, like what a way to live this life. Like Hokahe, like in Lakota saying, Crazy Horse, who was a mystic and a warrior, he would say Nake Nula Waung, which is I am ready for whatever's next. And it's kind of the battle cry of the hero, which is like, and it's been translated as today is a good day to die, which means like all my affairs are taken care of. I've said I love you to everybody who I love. I've, blessed all of the people I could bless. I've protected all of those people I could protect. And if today is my day, Nake Nula Waung Hokahe, like let's go. And that's been like a real guiding principle for my life, is like I want to live every day. I'm gonna get on a plane today, and if that plane, fucking engine blows out, like I want to be sitting there and just knocking nula waung. Like I've lived my life. Like my woman knows I love her. Like my family knows I love them. Like I've given my best to the world, and I've done everything I could. And like to live by that code, and it's these stories and these ideas that help us actually understand who we can be. And again, I said like our potential, our daemon, and our stories actually inform what our daemon could be, and it shapes and molds, the potential that we can unlock for ourselves.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The way of the warrior is the resolute acceptance of death, I think has been said too. And you can't live fully until you have reconciled yourself to the natural order of things, of which life and death are a continuum, right? To die is as natural as being born, not something to be feared and guarded, or I shouldn't say guarded against. Obviously, you don't want to be a martyr.
Sure.
You want to preserve your life to the best of your ability, but you do it with the knowledge that life is provisional, right? It is a gift, but it is ultimately a gift that is taken in the end. And to start and live life beyond yourself seems to be the key to fulfillment and a life well lived. And that in my mind is where these role models come into play. It's like if you look at Christ as like the meta hero, he is someone that maximally lived life beyond himself, right? That it's a story that's like maxed out in all of its characteristics, where he meets betrayal and crucifixion and all of these horrible things a person can go through, but he meets it all with compassion and love and honesty. He meets temptation in the desert and he overcomes it. And it's just the blueprint for like the optimal human consciousness, perhaps.
The most divine.
The most divine
consciousness.
And it's encoded into a story that everyone can interpret. They don't need to understand what we're talking about here, imitation and archetypes and all that. It's like you can just kind of read the story and get that download. And so that's why it's been so successful, presumably. And some people might hear this and think, oh, what, past life regression? What is all this woo-woo stuff you're talking about? But I think what we do in life echoes in eternity could be understood, and not to reduce the other aspects of it, but it could be understood even in a materialistic lens, that it's what you do right in your life will echo in the lives of other people that found you to be imitation worthy. And so as someone who aspires to be that, we need someone to point at. And at the very top of that pinnacle are these archetypes like Christ and others. And so when I was talking about this, I wish someone had explained Christianity to me like this when I was a kid. Because that would have resonated a lot better. Like it's a very practical, kind of anthropological view of it versus just this.
Don't have sex.
Exactly.
You're going to go to hell.
Exactly.
Like how it got reduced to that,
yes,
is also one of the great tragedies, I think that we've experienced, is that you start talking about Christ and you start talking about God, and at least 50% of the people you're talking to are like, yeah, not for me.
Immediately.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Christ and God, that's the best. But it's been kind of misused. And, you know, the demons always find the holy to hide in, right? Like they're always drawn to mask themselves. Like Satan is the father of lies.
Yeah.
Right. So where are you going to find the greatest deceit? It's in the virtue, that this false virtue. So it's the virtue signaling. It's like, it's this, I am better than you. It's the righteousness. It's the, and also the holiness that can come from, you know, the church when it's been corrupted. You know, I think like when you're thinking of, I went to a dungeon of the Inquisition, for example, and this is when I started my journey as a fucking pissed off, angry atheist. Why? Because 15-year-old me goes to Italy and I go to a dungeon of the Inquisition. And the Inquisition was led by the Catholic Church. And what I saw in that dungeon of the Inquisition and all the relics were torture devices that were so heinous. First of all, 70% of them had to do with genitals. Right? Like literally, like 70% had to do with genitals. And the other ones were just, they haunt me. They haunt me to this day. That the fact that they were used on human beings, it haunted me. And I was like, I'm going to burn religion to the ground. I was like, I'm going to be the next Christopher Hitchens. Like, I'm going to burn this shit to the ground. Because if religion did this, it needs to be destroyed. And that's, but clearly what happened is that the devil, the anti-life, the anti-you, the anti-value force found its way into the holy, which gave it permission to do these horrid, heinous things that come from the dark source of the void, you know, the source of all darkness itself. And it hid there and it allowed itself to perpetrate all over the world. But that's not God's fault, and that's not Christ's fault. Right. And when I did my first plant medicine journey at 18 and my body evaporated and I found myself melted into the universal consciousness of love, just in the lap of God where the insides were lined with love, I was like, fuck, I guess I'm not an atheist anymore. So now I got to synthesize all of these things. And so now God is like the best word in my language. And Christ is like, I get the happiest when I say it. Yeah. You know, like Jesus, like, yes. You know, so I have the best connotations from having the worst connotations before because of my own experiential, you know, path. And I've had, you know, my own through the plant medicines, ayahuasca and DMT and different other experiences, my own encounters with the Yeshua energy. And it's just been the best. Same with the Buddha energy, you know, and I can tell those stories if you like, but it's so profound what is actually there at the core. Yeah. And we just have to clean off all of the historical baggage. We have to clean off all the dogma and all the perversion that has happened and the corruption that's happened from big capital R religion. Yeah. That has, and it's not that it's been all bad. There's been some beauty, real beauty in keeping these traditions alive. And there's real beauty in the community of churches and there's beauty in the spirit and value. So I'm not in any way saying that all religions are bad, but there's an evolution that needs to happen. Yeah. And I think we're in the time now where we're here to evolve old systems. Like you're here talking about evolving an old system of money. Yeah. You know, and I agree. Yeah. And you're actually the person that's kind of more your path than mine, even though we're coming together in this kind of cool project called MetalMark, which is, you know, touching on both things that we really value because I think we have a broad set of interests. But for me, it's like, I really want to evolve people's relationship with God. Yeah. And these great mystics.
Have you ever wanted to live in an off-grid community with complete food, energy, and water independence? If so, then you need to check out the farm at Okefenokee. The farm is a pioneering community designed to foster longevity and well-being, eliminating elements that detract from these goals. At the farm, the convergence of nature, nutritious food, a supportive community, and the ethos of slowing down is unparalleled. Positioned at the gateway to the UNESCO World Heritage-nominated Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, the farm at Okefenokee stands as a testament to a lifestyle that truly nurtures health, and happiness. Unlike conventional housing developments where a token communal garden may suffice, the farm itself is the community. Small, intimate microvillages seamlessly integrate into the fabric of a sprawling agricultural community. So if you're interested in joining this off-grid community, then go to okefarm.com today to learn more about becoming a member. Make sure to tell them that I sent you for a $21,000 discount on their custom cabin pricing. Again, go to okefarm.com to learn more about joining this revolutionary regenerative agriculture community. Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLF, NYC.com.
The common thread, perhaps, is decentralization, I think, right? Because as you were just describing, the Inquisition, right, was perpetrated by the centralized Catholic Church, and it was perpetrated against a decentralizing movement, right? Where this was, I hope my history is correct, but this was after Martin Luther's 95 Theses, the Protestant Reformation, when the Inquisition occurred, right? So they're pushing back against that.
Don't know exactly the timing of it, but it was about, witches and heretics and anybody who had direct access to the divine.
Exactly.
So
decentralized access.
They were trying to wipe out any democratization of access to the divine, to centralize all the power. So if you want to get to God, you got to go to the church. You got to tithe. You got to pay the priests, and you got to, let
buy
them
your
do
way
whatever,
into heaven.
buy your way into heaven.
Yeah. So the centralized gatekeeping of any institution seems to be the real problem, in that those gatekeepers have a very significant financial incentive to control the gate and charge a toll. And they don't want people to go around the gate, right? Which is what the decentralized movement, to have giving people an individual direct relationship with God through the word.
Right.
And a lot of this, we could go back further, had to do with the invention of the printing press, right? That made books a lot cheaper and more abundant. So that's why people started to become more literate, and they didn't need to go. A lot of people were illiterate prior to the printing press, so they went to the Catholic Church for this access point.
Well, and also the absurdity of the whole thing. It also reminds me of the medical system right now. So they would give their sermons in Latin. Nobody fucking understood Latin. So they're saying whatever the fuck. They knew what they were saying, but nobody else knew what they were saying. So they're speaking in Latin, giving, and then just directing. So nobody even had access to the words. They couldn't even understand what they were saying.
Right.
And it's the same actually with, a lot of the doctors who will speak in technical jargon and write out these technical prescriptions and wear the ceremonial garb of the white coats and the centralization of medicine, which of course has, we've all I'm sure, been to the hospital and had our lives saved by
Sure.
Western medicine. So there's been great blessings, just like there's been great blessings from religion, but there's also deep corruption
Yes.
that's in there. And I think now, especially in this next 4 years, with RFK being the head of the Health and Human Safety, and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, like everybody else who's coming in, we're going to see all of this corruption start to be exposed.
Yeah. I think it also maps onto high finance. You hear these
Totally.
Wall Street guys, yield curve inversion and on the 10-year treasury and interest rates. Like, there's a lot of vernacular that's used that most people don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's by design to just sort of obfuscate something and make it seem more complex than it really is. So you can get them to give you your money so they can invest it for
Right.
you silly peasant that don't know how to
Yes,
invest your own
exactly.
money. Like, there's this same kind of language game, to use the Wittgenstein term, being played on people. And decentralization is more about individuals knowing what they're doing, right? Like learning for themselves and having a direct relationship with their own money or their own God or their own health in the case of healthcare. And so like we've talked a lot this weekend, but that seems to characterize the future we're moving into, is that we're moving into a much more decentralized world because access to information is more abundant than it's ever been. Ideas move with more speed and liquidity than they've ever have, right? It's almost like a printing press revolution 2.0. And so the question then becomes, at least in the sphere of money, it's like, well, what are we going to do as we move away from centralized money? Centralized money being state-sponsored fiat currency, central bank-backed fiat currency. The only decentralized options that I can see are physical gold, which is part of this business we're working on, MetalMark, and the one that I talk about till I'm blue in the face on this show, which is Bitcoin.
Yep.
And so it's really an ultimate power to the people move.
Yeah.
That all of this power has been centralized inside of the central bank and the state for hundreds of years, 500 plus years at this point. But now, thanks to a revolution in digital technology, it's decentralizing again.
Yeah.
And that's something to be celebrated.
So this is a concept I think you'll enjoy, and you might be aware of it, but it's the difference between complicated systems and complex systems. So complicated system, Boeing 737 jet, complicated system. You have to have a very specific engineer with a very specific set of skills. If even the lavatory goes off, your plane is going to be grounded, and you're going to have to fucking wait for somebody who has the specific lavatory codes to fucking figure that shit out, let alone something with the flight navigation system or the inner computer work. It's very complicated. And if one thing breaks, it requires a very specific set of knowledge, and you're always working on these and it is necessary for certain types of technology. But complex systems are like the rainforest.
Yeah.
The rainforest is a complex system of interdependence, and it requires no managerial class.
Exactly.
Requires no experts to help the rainforest work. It's like, nope, it's just going to work.
Yeah.
It's just going to work naturally. And I think it's about that trust. And it does come back to a trust in God. It's a trust that we're actually all going to be interconnected in a way, and we're going to figure it out. If you democratize access to the divine, first of all, which I think is one of these big problems, because that's led to a lot of the evils and predation that we've experienced. So we got to get people democratize the access back to God, which means also opening up these plant medicine paths, also paths like breath work and sensory deprivation tanks and meditation. And this is stuff that should be commonly known. It's not only about psychedelic medicine. There's many, 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 many ways. But we have to democratize access to God. We have to democratize access to control of our own sovereign money and will and understanding. And then, yes, there still will be complicated systems, but if we trust the complex system with some guidelines to prevent predation, nobody should be allowed to hurt another person or take advantage or prey on another. That's important that we protect that. But otherwise, it's really about trust. And I think the totalitarian, authoritarian moves are really about totalizing control and power from a place of fear and a lack of trust. Yeah. And I think we're moving into an era of honesty and trust where we're saying no, let's trust everybody to find the information, to get the information, to actually assimilate it. And that's going to be necessary in money, in health, in spirituality, across the board.
Yeah. Self-organization, right? That, nature is a self-organizing system. We are nature.
Yeah.
Right? We actually tend to be very effective at self-organization, but people that come into power, this is, I guess, the power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely type of thing. They tend to get this hubris about them that they need to control or manage or plan society in some way. That self-organization is not adequate. We have a better idea for people. It's an idea that's so good, we need to coerce them into adopting it. And so there's this great book by William Durant and his wife. The title escapes me, but it's all of world history collapsed into a 100-page book. And they said the main pattern throughout human history is this, I think they called it the heartbeat of human history. The systole and diastole is this tendency to decentralize, and then that creates a lot of abundance. And then as people start to gather these pockets of abundance, they centralize until it becomes so corrupt and rigid and tyrannical that revolution overthrows it and it re-decentralizes. So this is like the movement of human history. And I think we've definitely passed a recent point, I don't know where, 60s, 70s, maybe more recently, of peak centralization. And now we're seeing this move back towards decentralization through digital technologies, as we said earlier. So I want to ask you, I'll tell you where I'm going with this. I want to ask you, because as you've mentioned, you've been through a lot of plant medicine journeys in your life. I don't know if you would describe yourself as a psychonaut.
100%.
But you're certainly there. I want to ask you how you define God. I know this word is impossible to define, but I just want to hear you say some things about it. And then I want to transition into what's been called by many people for many centuries God's money, which is physical gold. And so I want to try to connect these two things, and then we'll go and talk about some Bitcoin later.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to circle back real quick because I have a big bone to pick with Lord Acton's quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think power puts pressure on a being, and what will emerge is the truth of that being. And so depending on how vulnerable you are to corruptions, so imagine you have cracks or fissures. Evil always enters the wound. The power is this, it's going to put pressure, and it's going to put pressure on those cracks and fissures. And if you have them, if you have egos and jealousies and lust for power and all of these different things, that if you haven't, to go back to our earlier part of the conversation, if you haven't mastered the dragon and you have all of this power, and the dragon has the ability to rape and pillage and conquer and all of this, and you haven't mastered actually that and actually connected to God, it's going to be a problem. But it's not actually a tautology. It's not always true, because I know, I have the blessing of being really close with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And if I could snap my fingers and say, you have absolute power, I would rest so good at night, because I know how deeply he's connected to God. And I know that he is a servant first. I watched him in a sweat lodge. It was a hot sweat lodge, and it was several different Lakota sun dancers in there serving and pouring the medicine, my brother Porangi and Chase Iron Eyes. And it was an intense lodge. And after the second round, there's 4 doors. It's like a 3.5 hour lodge. It's unbelievably hot in the steam. After the second door, which was grueling, and there's 50 people in this fucking lodge, they offered as mercy the mini wachoni, which is the sacred water, like a ladle of water. And I just watched him pass that ladle to every single other person. He would just pass it as it moved by him, never taking a sip, until everybody had had a sip, and then there was no more. And he just didn't even drink a drop.
Wow.
That's the king.
Yeah.
The king serves everyone first, and that's what he cares about. And that's who he is. So power would not corrupt him. I know that.
Yeah.
So I know that to be true. And this goes back to, all right, so then what is God?
Yeah.
Like, what is God? And because that's what actually makes him uncorruptible is his connection to the divine.
Man, was he imitating Christ? Is that what you think? Like, because I was
Yeah.
thinking Christ is like, you're right, that Christ was given absolute power in a way. He's God.
Yeah.
But he still had the perfect structural moral integrity
That's right.
to resist temptation.
That's right. That's right. In his own way,
Yeah.
in his own RFK way,
Yeah.
which had a little more, Christ was more on the mystic flavor.
Sure.
And he's more on the king, on this kind of king archetype
Right.
flavor, but it's the same idea. It's his unique self, actually actualizing to the fullest. So God, and then my teacher, Rebbe Gaffney, says that God is the infinite intimate, right? So it's moves in us, as us, through us, and beyond us. And the feeling tone of God, the feeling tone is love. God feels like love. But not an ordinary love, like an outrageous love. A love that loves you so much. It's like God is like looking at you, just you, and saying, tell me your story, Robert. I love you so much, Robert. Tell me your story. Like, I know you got more in you. Like, what is possible for you? Like, I want the best for you. And it's with absolute attention and patience. And that's the nature of God. Now, there's a thing that I call the force, which is just the everything that is, the all that is. And that's another aspect of God, which is all the light and all the darkness. And I think sometimes it's important to clarify how you're using the word God, because there's the God as everything, all that is, which includes all the evil and the darkness. But that's not really what we want when we're talking about God. We want all of the life and the love and the whole field of value. So for me, I understand that God also, you can say, includes everything, but I just call that the force. That's like the Tao. And if you read the Tao Te Ching, it says the Tao is older than God.
Yeah.
We don't know what created. It's older than God, but God births out of the Tao. And I actually like that nomenclature. You can call the Tao God, but I don't like doing that. I like knowing God in the way that I just described, and that to me is what I've experienced in like a Bufo journey it's just this feeling where every cell is exploding in orgasmic, ecstatic, outrageous love. And in that feeling, and it comes from the heart. Like the heart is the locus. It's like, it's our little piece. It's the Atman, so in the Kashmir Shaivist or like the Hindu traditions, the Atman is our own little piece of God that we hold in our heart, in the center. And our center of centers is like a little piece of God. That's where God is in us, as us, through us, and beyond us. And Atman is Brahman. Brahman is the universal God. So we have like a small piece of the universal God that beats within us. As Rumi said too, because so many different mystics interpreted this, we are not a drop in the ocean, we're the ocean in a drop. Right? Like that is like we have the Godhead, we have the divine spark, like right deep in our heart. And to imitatio Christi is to allow that to permeate through all the way, blast through the central column, out the crown and into the mind, and then out through the whole body and all of your actions. And that's, I think, that's the path, is to connect to that inner divine and also the outer divine, and they're all connected. And to make that connection so solid that you become the living embodiment of the divine will. And in the lineage of Solomon, which I'm studying in, they call that Ratzon Hashem, which is where your will, through the clarification of your desire, becomes ontically identical with God's will. It's just like, so you're actually enacting God's will in your everyday life. And that's what I see in Kennedy. He's enacting God's will in every choice that he's making. And that's what Christ was doing. He was enacting God's will in every choice that he was making. But everybody's circumstances are different. So the choices that you're making will be different.
Right.
But it's about like, are you enacting God's will, which includes the whole? There's nobody on the outside of God's circle. All of life is God. So that's the big difference. It's about service to self or service to the whole. The whole includes the self.
Yes.
So it's not about the abnegation of the self. You're a part of the whole. Take care of yourself. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. You're part of the whole. Like you're here. Like, I really believe like a great story is, you pass to the end of your life and you go to see God, and God looks at you and she says, "Did you enjoy my world? Did you enjoy my world?" And if you're like, "No, I didn't. It was miserable, but I was serving you." And you're like, "What do you mean?" Like I made this world for you. And I made this world for all my children. Like, of course, like if you have a house, we're going to have kids soon, probably in the next 2 years. We're both on that journey. You're going to make your house awesome for your kids because you love them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what you're going to do.
That's what you do.
And that's what God did. Earth is awesome.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. It really and of course God wants us to enjoy this world. And that's also where religion got it all fucked up.
Yeah.
Why do you think God just playing a big dirty trick to make sex feel this good?
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to do it? Is this some trickster asshole God?
Yeah.
It'd be like giving your kid a toy that was like the best toy.
Never
fun.
played with it.
Like this awesome car that had things lit up and like engine sounds and we made a whole track and like, don't get in that car. You'll burn in the pits of hell and fire if you get in that car. And the kid's like, but the car is so good. Like you'd be a dick. God's not a dick.
Yeah.
God fucking loves us.
Yeah.
Loves us.
Dude, that is such a good reminder because the world is also hard, man. The world can also give you quite a lot of adversity at times, and people I think often struggle, but it really comes back to that whole idea of responsibility again, and trying to, no matter your circumstances, no matter where you're born, no matter what you're born with, who you're born around, that ultimately it does come down to you. I forget how you put it, not imitating God, but acting in the will of God, aligning your will to the will of God, which is something like, to get a little less theological about it, trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Which is a very simple phrase, but very difficult sometimes. Right. There's many situations where the right thing is not always so clear.
And that's where you got to pray.
And that's where you got to pray. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's always, they call it in the lineage, they call it the lahisha, and it's the whisper. And if you get quiet, and prayer is a great way to get quiet. And I think we've reduced prayer to this, like throwing a quarter in the cosmic wishing well. I mean, like, let me throw this in here and then I'm going to get my wishes.
Yeah.
I'm praying for a Ferrari,
Yeah.
And like, even in the New Age movement, like, I'm going to manifest my Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, go for it.
Yeah.
But like, that's not it. Like, prayer is like, God, I love you so much. Thank you so much, God. I love you so much. Thank you so much, God. Like, what should I do in this situation? Like, help me, God. Help me see clearly. Help me serve myself and my family and the world in the best way, God. Please. Like, I love you so much. That's like, to me, that's prayer. That's how I pray, and you pray with that like intensity.
Yeah. And
And if you get quiet and then you just listen, and then you'll just start to feel and know, and that's why I think prayer is so important.
Yeah.
Because there's information that's available. And sometimes we'll feel it as like a gut instinct and we'll just know and it'll come from our heart. Sometimes we need to get really quiet and ask. And I can honestly say that all of the best things I've done have come through some act of prayer. And all of the worst decisions I've made have come when I've decided, I got this from here, God.
Yeah.
I don't need to listen.
Right.
Hey, God, chill.
Yeah.
Like, I got this.
Yeah.
My mind, I'm fucking clever as hell. I'm going to sell Bitcoin at 70 because I'm clever as hell.
Should have prayed about that one.
I should have, honestly, because it was fear. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know who's going to win this election. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, and honestly, this company MetalMark was actually from a prayer, and it was my father passed, and my father had he was a commodities trader. So he was always trading different, he's famous commodities trader. He's chapter 1 in Jack Schwager's book, Market Wizards, which is a classic on like commodities trading when that first came about, when the futures market was created, where you could, buy commodities, but not actually have to take possession, and you'd buy them in future contracts and then trade those. And then so the actual people who wanted them would, they would allow them to hedge and allow this whole market was created. Well, he was one of the pioneers in that, but he always had a deep affinity to gold. And so my father passed, and to him also gold represented freedom. Like when he passed away, like he didn't, I don't want to go too deep in the story of my father, but he had a psychosis and he'd lost pretty much everything, and he was isolated from everyone for, a dozen years. But like, what did he have left? He had, a bunch of silver coins and some gold bars. Like he still, to the very end, like that was like something that he knew had value, like real value. It was something that he trusted. And so when he passed, I was just in a lot of prayer. I did like a 10-day, sitting Shiva, which is in the lineage that I'm, a part of. And this was telling stories and connecting. And I also did my own psychonautic journeys where I would try to connect with my father's soul. And there's a whole mythical process that it's also, I'm writing about in my book. But the concept for MetalMark is I thought, all right, Dad, like, is there any messages? Like, is there something, like, and I was actually trying to get communication from my father. Like, all right, well, you've passed. And I got this interesting like message, which was, to me, it was like, do something with gold. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll make a gold coin. But that's kind of lame. Like a lot of people have made gold coins. So I called up one of my old family friends. It was like one of my father's best friends. And I said, Hugh, I got this message. It's, he's not really into the spiritual side. So I maybe just said, like, I have this idea. Thinking about making a gold coin. Do you know any mints that would do that? He was like, yeah, sure. Lots of mints that'll make a gold coin. But I know something way cooler. And it's something that me and your dad used to talk about all the time, which was how do you democratize and create fractional gold? And this new company, Valarum, has created this fractional gold bills. Like, and I was like, no shit.
I should probably show one of these.
Yeah. I was like, no shit. And so I looked into that.
Paperized gold.
Exactly. So this technology, I had no idea that this existed. And it is way doper than a coin. I mean, coins are cool, especially if you're Geralt of Rivia and you can throw it to, get your desires met, whatever that is. But like, ultimately, this allows not only gold to be like a note, or like even, you can't call it a currency because it's not that, but it's because it's a commodity.
Paperized.
It's paperized gold. It's a note, but it's in the shape of something you could keep in your wallet.
Yeah.
And it allows you to print like beautiful art on the gold. And so I was like, this is it. And so this was one of those moments from like prayer and inspiration where it led me down this path. It wasn't the path that I exactly expected. I was intending to make gold coins, which is super not interesting. And then this came about, and then my own passion and love for art, and then thinking like, oh shit, what if we combine like limited edition, like badass art on top of this gold? So you have like the double scarcity. And our first partnership was with Frank Frazetta, who's one of my favorite iconic artists, did all like the Conan art, and is like one of the great classic American artists. And so now you have gold that actually is fully assayable and recoverable. You can go, we have videos of how this melts down. You just melt it down and you get a little gold ingot. So you have the gold value, plus you have the collector's scarcity value. Because I've collected coins and cards and stamps, and especially cards. I mean, I have all kinds of cards, Magic the Gathering cards, sports cards, all kinds of cards, comics. It's all paper.
Yeah.
but this is actually gold. So you have the scarcity and value of gold mixed with the collector's value of the art.
Right.
And I was like, this is awesome. And I started showing people, and I was like, what do you guys think of this? And literally 100% of people were like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't like gold and art? And when you combine them both, and I was like, fucking A, this is awesome. And so like, of all this, I've done so many stupid things. And then the things that I've done well have been like in these moments of kind of divine inspiration. And, you know, look, it's no guarantee that this company will blow up and be incredible. I think it will. But either way, like, I'm going to be happy with it because I was listening and I created something that I love. And even if at the end of the day, me and you are just, you know, as partners in this company, we're just sitting on a fucking stack of these things.
Got a lot of gold.
We got a lot of gold. Like, we're not going to be bummed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas like all of these other clever things that the mind boy of Aubrey, you know, taking control of the reins are doing, it's like those things haven't worked out so good for me. But when I'm really listening, then, and sometimes God gets loud as well, you know, and is like, hey, dummy, like, listen, pay attention. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And that can happen when you get sick or when you get like something bad happens. It's like God, like, hey, take a seat. Like, God puts you on the bench, like, chill, like, listen, what's going on? What are you putting in your body? What are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your finance? What are you doing in this relationship? What are the patterns that you keep repeating? You know, like, these are, you know, God's this kind of this loving teacher, but allows us the freedom to fuck it all up if we want. But is always there to be like, I love you. Yeah. You can do better. You can choose better. You can make a different choice.
Yeah. No, that's well said. And thank you for sharing the story and the motivation for this. To put it in an untoward way, perhaps, but sometimes God has a hell of a way of getting your attention.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you do persist in a certain pattern for long enough, he will, as you said, put you on the bench. But you can prevent those moments, or maybe, I don't know if you can prevent them, but you can lower the probability that you're going to have to face that tough love, that harsh reality where God grabs you and gives you a good shake by engaging in this practice of prayer, right? Quieting the mind so that you can hear the whispers of the heart.
Yes.
And trying to lead from the heart instead of the mind. As we said in our conversation earlier, right? The mind is an excellent servant, yet a terrible master. The heart really should be in charge. And then the mind should be the emissary to the heart.
One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. Before starting the What is Money show, I spent most of my career as a CFO, overseeing internal technology implementations and business acquisitions. Over the next 10 years, it is projected that over 12 million businesses in the US will be sold. If you are an operator running a business generating between $5 and $200 million of revenue, and you're considering selling your business within the next decade, then there is a significant opportunity for you to deploy technology to streamline business processes, reduce operating costs, and enhance the multiple your business ultimately sells for. To this end, I am partnering with the team at Emerge Dynamics, a firm with decades of experience in maximizing the value of privately held small and middle market businesses. Go to emergedynamics.com/breedlove to learn how you can build an attractive, high multiple company that maximizes your return when you fully exit. Again, that's emergedynamics.com/breedlove. So talk about this business. So I was showing here, this is
Dark Kingdom.
Dark Kingdom. Now these small bills were 0.01 of an ounce of gold. Is that correct?
No, it's so all the numbers we chose to go with milligrams instead of troy ounces, just because it was easier. Yeah. So these are 500 milligrams.
500 milligrams.
And then there's 1,000 milligram notes. That's 1,000 milligrams. So the 1,000 on there, it's not $1,000. It's 1,000 milligrams of gold, 1 gram of gold.
Right.
So it's 1 gram of gold printed on a sheet of limited edition art. So there's only a certain number of these that'll ever be in existence. So that's what gets the collector's value.
Right.
Is like this license to actually print Frazetta notes on gold. You have to get a license if you're going to print them on fucking paper. Right. They don't. These are collector's pieces. There's only going to be a certain amount of them ever. And so Frazetta collectors are collecting them, and then other people will collect them. And so the appreciation of the collector's value is just like any limited edition art or any card that's valuable. So Jordan rookie or whatever else might be there. So it has the collector's value of limited edition art. And then ultimately, let's say everybody's like, Frank Frazetta, he sucks, which nobody says. Everybody he's like even artists themselves are like, man, this guy was the GOAT. He was the dopest. But even still, the awesome thing is you're like, fuck, nobody cares about this art. All right, take it, melt it down, and you got gold.
And so here, my perspective on this is, we talk a lot about the properties of money on the show, the history of money, and the Achilles heel of gold as money to scale it was that it lacked portability, ultimately. That's why we put all the gold in vaults, and that's why we denominated a paper derivative on top of it called the dollar, basically. Mm-hmm. And all currencies were redeemable for gold. It was meant to augment that portability problem. And coinage was an attempt to go around that, but coins, they're just not practical, right? You're going to carry around a little satchel of coins to pay for stuff. It's heavy, it's cumbersome, etc. But this is probably the most deft solution I've seen to that yet. Is that you've actually paperized gold effectively. So you've turned gold into a currency-like unit. You can't call it currency because that's not the legal designation, but it can go into your wallet. It is bendable, flexible, etc. So it improves the portability of gold. You also get, I did not see this coming at all, but the NFT craze where people were buying, quote unquote, limited edition digital pieces of art, and they were fetching these crazy monetary premiums.
I know, that was wild.
Like that is I guess we call that the art premium, basically, right?
Pure art premium.
Yeah. So like the Mona Lisa is not that expensive in terms of paint and canvas, but the Mona Lisa is fucking priceless in terms of art premium.
Right.
So you're taking commodity value gold, you're making it as portable as possible, as functional as possible. You're then putting an art premium on it. Mm-hmm. And so it's like this kind of little triad that makes this super interesting. And then it's not just currency, or currency-like units, but you get very creative with this, right? Like we've talked about doing different types of cards, different types of actually printed art you put on your wall.
Totally.
There's a lot of possibilities. So, as in a world where money printing is rampant and commodity values are going up, as a sound money advocate, I think it's really intelligent to hold physical sound money, which is gold, and digital sound money, which is Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And it's just not as cool to just hold gold. I mean, you could just hold gold as bars in a safe. That's fine.
I mean, if you're fucking rolling, if you're Scrooge McDuck, go ahead, bro. Swim in that shit. Yeah. Get bars and bricks and, go for it. The premium, the higher the denominate, the higher the amount of gold. Like if you go buy a 30-ounce gold bar, which is like $90,000 or something. Yeah. Then the premium you're going to have to pay on that is super low because it's a massive, you're buying in bulk.
Yeah.
buying fucking gold in bulk. So you get a
Yeah.
low premium. Even if you get down to coins that are small, like gram coins, which are like, or it's the premium starts to jump way up because they make less, they're harder to make, etc.
There's more labor per unit. When
more
it's
labor
smaller.
per unit.
Yeah.
There's fewer supply. So, there is a premium on these notes, but there's also all of that other value in there. And, we're starting to see some states with this. There's a company, Goldback, which is part of the Aurum and Valarum. This is a proprietary process that they have to actually, the acrylic that they print the art on melts away, melts away easily so that all you're left with is the gold. But they're starting to use it as like, in many ways, like a commodity exchange tender in different states and in different, also, different countries are looking at this as well that have currencies that nobody trusts because they just print more whenever they want.
Yeah.
So you could have like, this is my savings. I got 50,000, Ghanaian currency here. And then tomorrow it's like, oh shit, it's worth 10,000, now. And so they're looking to like reinstate like trust ultimately in like the currency again. And interestingly, like on our money, I think it's really interesting, and on our coins, especially even like looking at the old coins or gold coins, it says, "In God we trust."
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that that's on our money.
Yeah.
And I think it actually ultimately like makes sense when you're talking about something that's decentralized, because then we're talking again about this complex natural system, about nature.
Yeah.
In God we trust. We trust that God in the infinite wisdom made this finite amount of gold, which I get into the whole spiritual aspect of it. I had this Rosicrucian master, this basically Library of Alexandria guy, Robert Gilbert, who was like, gold is the condensation of sunlight itself in physical form. And
I got to get him on the show, by the way.
Oh, he's
awesome.
incredible.
It's a great episode.
He's incredible. So, there's all of these esoteric qualities of gold, but there's also like a trust, like a trustability of it. Like in God we trust. We trust people to have private property. We trust people to transact. We trust people to exchange their wealth. We don't need a middleman.
Yeah.
In God we trust. It's cutting out the middleman and saying each person can have their own sovereign relationship with the divine.
Yes.
And act in accordance with divine order.
Yeah. And the paradox there is like the word trust it's another one of these tricky words. Nick Szabo describes money as the trust minimized asset. And what he means by that is that you can trust that gold has this unforgeable costliness that, a lot of people would use the word intrinsic value, but he uses a term that's a bit more specific. An unforgeable costliness means that it cannot be counterfeited by other humans. So when we use gold as natural money, as God's money, if you will, we trust it because it minimizes the need to trust other people. Because they can't print it, right? They're restricted. It's like, we trust the laws of physics because no one knows how to change them, right? We trust gravity because no one knows how to manipulate it. We trust mathematics because it's an incorruptible language. Gold is this analog or physical incorruptible money.
Yep.
And by extension, this is in the digital domain. This is what Bitcoin is, right? The most widely used analogy for Bitcoin is digital gold. And it is for that reason, right? We have a digital incorruptible money. And so I've gained such an appreciation for gold, actually. I'm very grateful for going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole that it's made me appreciate gold more and more and more. I had some appreciation for it prior, but I also thought that we were just sort of, it got us to this point, right? Where, well, shit, all the gold's been, not all of it, but 25% of the gold's been centralized by central banks. And they've now severed the peg to gold and they engage in this endless money printing experiment. And we all bear the burden of that.
Right.
And so getting gold to be more portable, getting gold into more people's hands, giving people more options, creating more of this decentralized world where people can have direct access and control over their own purchasing power and therefore destiny and therefore lives. Like these things really matter. if we're going to support a world that's moving away from centralization and towards decentralization, which is to say away from corruptible human nature and towards an incorruptible living in accordance with natural law, something like that.
Yeah. And the other thing, so if you think of the Sphirot, the Kabbalist tree of life, and at the center, the illumination is Tiferet, and Tiferet is beauty. And these are all like the values of the divine. These are the doorways and values of the divine. Tiferet is beauty. And I think that's something that we actually inherently see and feel when we look at gold. Why do people want to plate things in gold?
Yeah.
Why does gold jewel? Why am I wearing this gold, chain here? Because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it's just something about, Aldous Huxley talks about it in Doors of Perception. It mimics something that we see in the divine beauty when we're on medicine even. It's like there's some element that we know is beautiful. And I think that's also, part of what this MetalMark thing is like beauty is a value. Like beauty is also a part of God. And Bitcoin is beautiful in a different way. It's like I've talked about the 7 types of love. I got this poetry book coming out called Love to the Seventh Power. But there's 7 types of love. One of those loves is pragma, and it's rational love. And so Bitcoin is beautiful through the lens of pragma, of like, this is practically so beautiful because of the function that it serves. So it's beautiful, but you can't see it or hold it. And I know that they've tried to make little physical representations of it that are actually sometimes quite beautiful. But nonetheless, in and of itself, you can't see it.
Yes.
But it's just, it's there and you can actually, you can look at the chain and whatever and identify it.
Yes.
But those numbers aren't beautiful, by any stretch. So it's a nice pairing of like the pragma, like the beauty of the ultimate best function. And then this with gold is like, no, it's actually just, you look at it and it arrests your eyes.
Yes. It feels like that same feeling I have when I look into a campfire in a way. You get mesmerized by it. You do get this mesmerizing experience engaging with physical gold. And perhaps it is related, as you said, your guest said, it's the crystallization of sunlight.
Yeah, like the condensation of actually the energy of sunlight, which is also the energy of St. Michael, also the energy of the Christos.
And it is actually manufactured in the hearts of stars, right?
Right.
That's like where gold actually comes from. That's why there is such a small amount on this planet. And the saying that there's the philosophical notion that beauty is where appearances reveal truth. And there's something raw. There's something raw and elemental, I think, about gold and about fire. And it engages that deeper evolutionary part of ourselves that's been engaging with these things for a long, long, long time, that has an appreciation for it that we can't even cognitively understand, but it's there, like we look into the campfire. I don't know why it's so mesmerizing, but it's there and I love it and I want to build another one. Totally. And gold has a similar experience. And then, Bitcoin, it's a different thing, right? It's more of like a mathematical elegance, like a beautiful theory, right? E equals MC squared is beautiful. You don't see it or touch it.
Right.
But it's something very powerful and tells you a lot about the universe. And so I put Bitcoin in that sort of domain of beauty.
Totally.
And,
there's this, I have to share this with you because I think you'd find it funny. So, you were at my wife's Vylana sound healing.
Oh, we got to talk about that too.
And that was, you had a super powerful experience. I've been in so many of those with her, and it's just like the angels themselves are singing through her,
Yes.
But so our friends were in the sauna afterwards because it was at the Faina Spa, and there was somebody in the sauna, and he had 6 Apple Watches on. 6.
On one wrist?
No, 3 on each, because I guess the bands were so much. 6 was maxed out, how many he could get. And so they're like, why do you have 6 Apple? I just have to ask, like, why do you have 6 Apple Watches? He goes, well, they're connected to this coin, what you would call a shit coin.
Oh boy.
But the coin, the coin is actually mined by you doing good things on the Apple Watch. So like going into the sauna gives you points on the coin. So he's hacking the system by putting 6 watches on and taking his steps and like getting in the sauna and working out. And they're like, so how much money do you make on a day wearing 6 watches and just kicking ass? And he's like, well, it depends on what the coin's price is, but on a good day when the coin's at high value, I can get $250 per watch per day. They're like, whoa. And what was interesting to me is like it's a cool idea to kind of incentivize people to do good things.
Yeah.
But then you got this motherfucker with 6 watches on, and then what's going to happen next? They're just going to pay for other people to wear 6 watches and be healthy, and it's just going to be some fat Jabba the Hutt motherfucker just paying a bunch of servants to wear these watches. Like the system's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like they created a game.
Yes.
They created a game, and the game is ultimately going to get corrupted.
The game's going to get gamed.
It's going to get gamed.
Yeah.
And then the coin's going to be worth nothing.
That's exactly what's going to happen. And that coin is going to get rug pulled at some point by the developers, and it's going to go to 0. And then his watches are going to yield 0. And the guy has to look like a walking shit coin in the meantime. Like that's. It reminds me of the Cobra problem. I don't know if you ever heard of this one, but like it might be an apocryphal story, but there was a village that had a problem with cobras, right? Too many cobras. So the village leader makes a financial reward, right? $1 or whatever it was for every dead cobra turned in, thinking that's going to help solve the problem. What does it actually do? It incentivizes people to start breeding cobras and turning in dead. So it's like, you can't, there's this hubris where humans try to intervene and centrally plan a solution.
Yeah.
And it often has unforeseen consequences. So
Yes.
we really need, like, the default presupposition should be that nature is right and you are wrong.
Yeah.
Now, occasionally we do need to intervene to create, this house isn't from nature. This stuff isn't from nature. We do need to create our own niche. We do need to modify our environment to suit our needs to some extent. So it's not to say never intervene at all, but intervene with a very high degree of humility.
Yeah.
Right. And be ready to fuck up a lot.
Yeah.
And so, every time I hear these shit coins, that's a funny one. Like this guy just looking like a D-bag. But that's why we say Bitcoin, not shitcoin.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. And there's something I saw, I think it was on the show Rings of Power, which is like earlier, it takes the Fellowship of the Ring and it goes earlier. I think it's on Amazon or something. But they're training these sea captains, and like part of their training, their mantra is the sea is always right. The sea is always right. So like instead of blaming the sea, it's like, no, the sea, nature is always right.
That's right.
And it's like, it's up to you as the sea captain to respond to nature, but don't blame the sea.
Yes.
Like, I can't believe it. Look at the wave.
Right.
Like, no, the sea is always right. It's up to you to respond in that. And I think that's, God is always right. Nature's always right. And you still tack the sails.
Yes.
You still choose which days you go out. You still listen to the weather. You still navigate your own life, but don't blame the world. It's just like the world is the world. Yeah. And it's up to you as the captain to navigate that world and be the captain of your soul, master of your destiny.
Beautifully said. And, 2 quotes that brings to mind. One is, the job of the captain is to see the ship through the eyes of the crew. Like it's not just us alone, right? We need to take on other perspectives. We all have blind spots. We need to complement those blind spots with the perspectives of others. And there's the African proverb, I think, that says, smooth seas don't make skillful sailors.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that, the sea is always right, because the sea is. And doesn't care what you think or what your mood is or your lack of preparation or whatever. Nope. It's totally impartial to you. And so you have to adapt to it, not the reverse, right? Mm-hmm. And so, hopefully it feels like we're going the right way. It feels like the world is moving back towards decentralized systems.
I think so, man. I'm really optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm really optimistic. And I look back at even that decision I made, which is embarrassing to admit. I'm here with the Bitcoin expert, like, and you were at my fucking house.
I'll never let you do it again, bro.
Yeah,
I'll never
I know,
let you do it
seriously.
again.
but like, what did it come down to? It came down to, I really lost faith.
Yeah.
I believed in Bitcoin. That's
Right.
the thing. That's what pisses me off about it, is I believed in it. And I put a lot, like when I had my Onnit days, I put a lot in. And it was a really bad time. I watched it go from, I got in at like 68 and I watched it go to fucking 14.
Right at the
and
top, right to the
got
bottom.
hammered, and I held and then I came back and, I made some moves that were not the super wisest because I just got destroyed.
Yep.
And so I got a little fear. So that was the first thing. A little bit of fear came into my system. Yeah. And then I saw the direction that the world was going. And I was so passionate for Bobby Kennedy to be president. And then I saw that he pulled out of the race, and I kind of lost faith in humanity. And as such, I lost faith in God. And as such, I lost faith in Bitcoin. And as such, I lost faith in myself. I lost faith in everything. And I got scared.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's a very expensive lesson to me because I believed in this. And it just, when it came down to it, I didn't have enough faith. And so for me, some of these lessons are expensive. Sometimes the sea asks for an expensive lesson. Sometimes God asks for an expensive lesson. This was a physically expensive lesson. There's lessons that are way more expensive, like with your child or with your spouse or with someone.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme, a very, very mild lesson, although significant enough for me to realize, like, if I was going to go back and hot wash and actually go look in, I let fear and a lack of faith override actually my heart's knowing and actually what I believe. And so from that place, instead of lamenting it, I can be grateful and I can laugh about it on videos and laugh about it on this podcast because I've harvested a lesson, a pearl of inestimable value,
right?
Which is the biblical term, the pearl of inestimable value, which is stick to your faith. And if you lose, in pure faith, and you've like acted out of love and faith, so what? Like, when are you going to regret that? Like, I acted in pure faith and love.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be like, oh man, I should have acted in fear. Nah, probably not. You know?
Yeah. Well, dude, honestly, thank you for being honest and courageous to admit it. There's so many people that everyone has made some kind of mistake, obviously, but largely with Bitcoin, people sell it high, do all kinds of weird things. So to be honest with yourself, to be open and honest about it, like, that's how you turn those wounds into wisdom.
Yeah.
Honestly. And then you can look at yourself honestly and be like, oh, I had this crisis of faith and here's how it shaked out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to rationalize and be like, oh no, well, I needed to sell it to do whatever. It's like, you're never going to pick up that lesson. You're never going to get that pearl that you said.
Exactly.
And so, like, let this be a lesson for other people. Like, as you make expensive or painful mistakes, be honest with yourself. Like, even when it hurts and even when your ego gets crushed and bruised, like, that's how you obtain that pearl, basically. So, dude, I got to get you out of here. You got to get to the airport.
I got to get to the airport. I would talk to you fucking for hours more. We got to do this again.
Yes, we will definitely do it again. We'll be in the nicer studio next time.
And, let's go.
Dude, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course, brother. It's been an absolute pleasure. Oh, people who want to go to MetalMark, MTLMRK.com.
Boom. Thank you, Aubs.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.